that I have this saved, I'm going to Command-Shift-O, change this to outlines. I'm going to select my background and Command-Shift-G, or right-click, ungroup, so that these become separate objects, because I only need these objects for live paint. Before I go any further, I want to make sure that my guides are locked, because if I try to drag across here and grab any of this stuff, I'm also grabbing the guides, and if the guides are included, the next step will not work. So right click off of the artwork, right click anywhere on your desktop, and lock guides. Now when I drag across here, I don't get the guide selected. I'm going to select the type and Command-Shift-O, convert to an object, Command-Z, or Command-Z, undo. In the type pull down, you'll find create outlines. I'm going to right click on my art and ungroup, or Command-Shift-G, ungroup, or under the object pull down, you can find ungroup. And now I'll drag the cursor across only this much. I want to get these shapes that are in contact with the headline and the headline, not the guides, and I don't need the rest of this because I don't need to apply live paint to anything other than this particular area. I suppose if I wanted to change some of the sky colors, I could make those live paint, but I can change those just by dropping swatches on them without it being live paint. With those selected, object, live paint, make. You can see that that brought everything to the top of the layer as a new group. It's the live paint group. And so if I want this to be in the front, I'll have to Command-Shift, open bracket, bring that to the front, or right-click, arrange, bring to front, or bring forward. Bring to front, probably safest, and put that about where I want it. Now, what does it mean to be a live paint object? It means that over here, this is normally under your shape builder, live paint bucket. You can see that whenever I go over something with my live paint bucket, if it's a live paint object, it highlights in red. You'll also notice a little black square there because black is selected. But if I go to my swatch palette, and this shows all the default colors, default grays, some default patterns, the two colors that I added when I was playing with my background, I don't really want to use all of those colors. I'll go to my options for this palette and select all unused, which, as you can see, is just about all of those colors. And I'm going to delete them. I then want to add colors. I want to add all of the colors that are used. So these are the colors that are actually in my image, the 13 colors that I came up with when I did my live paint to convert the photo. What other colors might I want? Well, I might want some colors that provide good contrast, but look good with, say, the background colors where I'm going to be adding live paint. First of all, let me show you what happens now that I have the colors I want in my palette. If I select, say, this color, notice that there are little swatches at my cursor. And using the left and right arrows on my keyboard, I can cycle through all those swatches. You see it cycling through on the swatch palette. But I want a contrasting color for my headline. I don't want everything in black. That's kind of uninteresting. What can I do? Well, I could select a color of something that's in my artwork, like this is the shadier part of the car, and look for color guide. And here are the color guides. The default color guide at the top, it shows the complementary. So the exact complement of this color is this sort of cyan or turquoise, probably a kind of a turquoise. If I wanted other complementary colors, there's a secondary set which shows some shades or variations. There are split complements, there are right complements, which are to the right on the color wheel, left complements to the left on the color wheel, analogous colors, monochromatic, shades, triads, a couple of different triads, compound, high contrast, 4 different high contrast sets, and pentagram, which divides it 5 ways on the color wheel. So you could select a set from here. Let's say the complementary might be a good idea. And if I want to add those to my color palette, I push this little button down here that shows a little set of color swatches and a plus sign, and you can see that's now added as a group in my swatch palette. What if I want the sky color, something that's complementary to the sky color? I could select this, take my eyedropper with nothing selected, select this. So this is now my selected swatch. Go to the color guide and find maybe pentagram, maybe high contrast colors. Yes, I think I'll go with high contrast colors. And I could add that set. So now when I go up here to color cannonball, I'm going to Command Y. I want to show you what happened here is that wherever the paths that are the letters overlap the paths that are the background, a new area is defined. And if I, again, go over this with my live paint bucket, you can see all these new shapes formed by the overlap of the letter paths and the background paths. And because this is divided up now into a bunch of other paths, this is why you have to make all of your type editing decisions before you start this. This is no longer type. These are shapes, and I'm stuck with these shapes interacting with the background the way that they are. Command Y, and we'll go back into preview so I can tell what my colors look like. Let's see, right here I'm against this gray. Okay, if I use my down arrow, I can go down to that. Doesn't seem to want to go there. I'm going to actually select this color. Okay, is that now goes back and forth inside that color group. When I get to this color, it jumps up to the main set here from my image. Actually, knowing that's there, I could just remove that one, and then maybe it would stay in those sets. Yes, now when I get to that set, I can go across with the arrows on my keyboard and it changes the color at my cursor. Maybe I'll try this one because actually this set was based on the car. This set is based on the sky. You can see how that looks. That's not bad. Maybe I want some shades of that. I could go back over to here. And this gives me the shades and tints of those colors. Select this whole group here and add that. So now I have all of those to choose from. Here, I might want that color. And maybe just everywhere that it's across that color, across that part of the sky, I'll use that color. Now down here, my colors are getting lighter. I probably should go the other way where I make against that dark color lighter. And then down here, I could use the darker color against the light background. So I'm maintaining both the color contrast and a tonal contrast. Or maybe I'd like to use some orange from the car in here, because that will also give me some contrast against that bluish color. And I'm using just the arrows on the keyboard, or if it doesn't duplicate that color in the swatch, it jumps up to the other one, to get to those colors. Use the space bar to get my hand to move my artwork. And a little more color over here. Oops, didn't want that. Okay, looking at this, I think this right here needs more contrast. Use the orange there. I don't know if that's a great solution, but that's a solution. You can spend a little more time making your decisions. I don't want to spend too much time in the demo. I just want to show you the technique. Down here, I could leave it like this. I could pick a color that contrasts this, and the way you would figure that out, that's moderately good contrast, or I could use this dark blue, or I could do something completely different. I did an experiment with this earlier. Maybe on this here, I might want to use that color, or maybe one of these blues, or perhaps a burgundy of some sort. Yeah, maybe a burgundy. Another thing you might consider, automobiles, maybe I need some chrome in there. Do something like this where we go into the color libraries and find gradients and perhaps metals, since we're talking about cars, and find something that looks like it's going to contrast there really well. Now I can't apply that to type, but what I can do is Command-Shift-O. As long as I've got all of my decisions about the type finalized, Command-Shift-O, turn that into outlines. If that selected as an object, you can't do it when you're in the type tool. And then apply that, and then maybe do some modifications of that. And that is now added to my swatch palette. Go to my gradient and change the angle. Let's try 75 degrees. Let's try 135 degrees. I think 135 degrees. And then if I want that to go with my cover better, I can go to my swatch palette. And instead of using the blue that was in there, use a blue that came out of one of those color sets that I came up with. A little lighter, so that it resonates with the design, resonates with the color scheme that I've already chosen. Now that doesn't stand out as well as I'd like, but I could give an illusion of dimension by adding a stroke to it of maybe 2 points, and also apply that gradient. Actually, that's the default gradient. I don't know if that changed to the gradient I created, so I'll make sure that I drag this onto the swatch palette. Yeah, this is the original. This is mine with that different blue. I'll apply that to the stroke. Let's get a look at that. And I get a sort of a metallic look to it. Now maybe that one, I should use the darker stroke, the darker color scheme, so it gives a little better contrast. And then maybe one more little detail. Object, expand the fill and the stroke. Not the fill, just the stroke. Because if I expand the fill and it's a gradient, it'll turn it into 255 objects unless I specify a number. So I just want to expand the stroke. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to revert to just a solid color object, expand the stroke only, fill that stroke with the darker gradient, and then apply to that new path that was created from the stroke, perhaps a dark blue outline at maybe 1 point thickness. And let's see how that looks. Okay, stroke's a little heavy. I'll make it a lighter color, lighter blue, and a thinner stroke, so it's just making the edge crisper, but not really showing up much there. I'm not sure that's a great solution. We'd be better off if I used a dark red stroke on that. Maybe not. Maybe this gradient's a bad idea. I wasn't completely satisfied with the bottom of my cover, so I made it a little darker to get better contrast against my author's name. I'm still not sure this was a good idea, but I'll move on to saving the file. I made some changes to the bottom of the cover to give better contrast for the author's name. You see that in presentation mode. And now it's time to save the final file. File, save as, And this will be your last name DL4B final as an AI file. And then you also want to save it as a PDF. The PDF, this is my final cover. I made some changes in the bottom to give better contrast for the author's name. I think I forgot to show you something about how I got this image trimmed, because I removed excess data that I knew I wasn't going to use. Go back to my draft file, and you can see that this part of the picture is still here. The way I removed the data that I don't need was with the eraser tool. 15-point calligraphy tip. Let's go big. And just click right here. I'm going to hold the shift key to constrain and go straight down this side. And that has erased path through those vector objects. And now it's a simple matter to just take my direct select tool and bring my cursor across everything, stopping in that gap that was made by the eraser, and hit the delete key. It's data I don't need, so there's no reason to have it in my file. I could do the same thing on the bottom here. I could select those points and use my arrow keys again to move those up. Doesn't really matter. That doesn't add as much data as having a lot of other picture parts that I'm not actually using. Okay, going back to my final version. In order to save this as a PDF for print, or you'll save as your last name DL4B final, although for the first critique, you should probably save it as your last name DLB and just leave it at that. So you've got a draft version that was where you stopped and saved it before you did the complicated stuff of converting the headline to an object and the live paint. And then for first critique, you will submit your last name DL4B.pdf. And after the critique, you will probably make changes. And then you save that as your last name DL4B final. Save that as an AI, and then save it again as a PDF. And the PDF in the next dialog box, you want not Illustrator default, but PDF X1A. You can use press quality or PDF X1A. PDF X1A is the commercial standard for pre-press files for offset printing or for a lot of other types of printing. You can say press quality, this will be okay. Compression you can ignore. Compression applies to pixel-based data. There's no pixel-based data in this file. Marks and bleeds, this is what is important. Include all printer's marks and use the document bleed setting. This is why we put a document bleed setting in the document, so that all you have to do is click it here to have bleeds in your final PDF. Save PDF. I have mine set to open automatically in Acrobat. That's one of the items you can select in the PDF dialog. And here's my press ready PDF. Notice the trim marks, notice the 1/8 of an inch bleed all the way around. There are registration marks that the printer will use for lining up film if they're doing 4-color film separation or lining up the plates on the press when they do their press run. There are color bars, there's a grayscale bar, and if this had other than 4-color, I would want to check to make sure that all the colors are functioning correctly. So I would go into Output Preview, and this is in my personal tool set for Acrobat. If you want to find that, it would be under Tools, Print Production, My Tools, my grading tools, Output Preview. And you can see that this has 4 process color channels: cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. If I turn them all off and turn them on one at a time, this is the cyan plate shown in grayscale, because everything on a plate is either ink or no ink. It's a binary system. There are halftone dots to make shades of gray, but it's a binary system. There's either ink on that spot or there isn't. When you add a second color, you get to see the actual colors. So that's cyan and magenta together. This is cyan, magenta, and yellow, and this is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. And that's my proof, and that's how it would go to press, and that is how you will turn in your final file.